Hello, I'm Oskar Sherliv. You're watching news from Kazakhstan, and here are the headlines. There is an offer to turn Turkestan city into the spiritual center of the continent, moreover to register the status in the special law. Disabled marked International Day of the Blind by a protest. They demand to dismiss the head of Kazakh Society of the Blind. Kazakh celebrities organized charity concert for orphans. The first unified birthing bed will now be available in Kazakhstan next year. This was reported by Marat Suleimanov, the inventor. Obstetrician gynecologists work on his project for almost 10 years. His innovation will help women to give birth not only with maximum comfort, but with less risk and save $18 million to the state budget. Medic is confident that there are no other similar beds in the world. More details in the next report.
We have to do everything manually, and it's tedious. I think if we can afford automated beds at $13,000 each plus 2 cots for newborns, that will be more convenient for everyone. Marat Suleimanov is the obstetrician gynecologist at the first local perinatal center. He explains the upsides of his know-how quite persuasively. The old delivery beds are currently installed in almost all clinics of the country. The doctor proposes to modernize them by adding a built-in chair for the obstetrician and 2 heated cots for newborns on the sides. The mothers themselves will stay in such beds in a vertical position. There is another piece missing, a U-shaped crossbar like on the picture. The pregnant woman could hold on to it or rest while hanging. Vertical births lower the chance of complications in newborns by 30%. Marat recalls that ancestors gave birth standing up for a reason. Obstetrician Balnur Sansizbayeva supports the idea. She's 22 years old and a new mother. Her firstborn appeared 3 years ago through a C-section. She has now decided to give birth to her second child on this wonder bed. I thought I would never give birth after the C-section, but then I heard about Marat's project and now I'm less afraid. I think it is easier to give birth on this bed. Marat came up with the idea in 2003. This year he presented his obstetric bed at the National Innovation Competition and won. The invention is receiving a flurry of attention from many Kazakhstan's moms, but officials are forced to cool them down, saying there is no miracle. You should understand that this is just supporting equipment, but everything still depends on the woman. You need to listen to what the doctors or obstetricians in charge are telling you. The obstetrician received $50,000 for his invention, which he wants to spend on producing a test sample. Clinical reviews are scheduled in Astana towards the end of the next year. The inventor calculated the risks. Traditional equipment costs $22,000, with 3,000 all beds needed to be replaced in maternity wards. If Marat Suleimanov's less costly invention is introduced, then the budget will save $18 million.
Academician and winner of state prize Orazali Sabdien offers in 10 years to turn the city of Turkestan into spiritual and technological center of civilization and the center of Eurasian integration. All this will help popularize Kazakhstan, says he. According to his calculations, the project will cost around $8 billion. Find out how he plans to spend the money next.
By uniting East and West and reviving the Great Silk Road opportunities, the new Turkestan will become a spiritual center of the century. The president of the Kazakhstan Union of Scientists and holder of the state prize Orazali Sabdien tends to think in terms of macro-humanism. Once the new Turkestan is out of the new state zone, it will turn into a Eurasian integration center, which will become the point of multinational cultural values accumulation. The scientific core group calls on the government to officially make Turkestan a spiritual capital of the continent. This requires drafting and passing a special law on the new status of Turkestan to legislate the Kazakhstan Spiritual Directorate of Muslims and the country's scientific and technological potential. Technocrats come up with a rather descriptive term of the new cultural center, which is the Eurasian Spiritual and Technological Cluster. Mufti Kanagat Kaji Usimbayev expressed readiness to leave for the Little Mecca at the first summons of the chief imam. We are glad to support the idea of making Turkestan the Turkic people's spiritual center. If it's God's will, an Islamic educational school will be opened there to help the younger generation stay away from the wrong ways. Visionary Nurlan Amrikulov endorsed the scientists' initiative despite the hefty project cost estimate of $8 to $30 billion. This looks like a good project given the vast sums of money pocketed by officials and laundered abroad. At least it will become a truly national wealth. The initiators of the world's first cultural cluster project claim it will give new momentum to the country's spiritual and technological development, as well as enhance Kazakhstan's international standing by making a significant contribution to global civilization amid economic uncertainty and financial crisis.
The National Forum was held in Astana, where for the first time representatives of regional authorities reported to the public on the work of rehabilitation of former convicts. Another roundtable discussed the conditions in Kazakh prisons. Shortcomings were found in both gatherings.
According to NGO monitoring, reports of harsh treatment come from all 4 jails in the capital. It is reported that prison conditions are far from international standards and criminal correctional system remains totalitarian. Recommendations have been voiced on this regard. We need to completely eradicate criminal influence over the inmates within prisons from criminal authorities as well as from administration and workers of the criminal and correctional system. We need to eliminate prisons for ex-police and prisons for criminals. Criminal authorities should not be the ones maintaining order in prisons, and prisons should serve their primary purpose. Evgeny Matunov, a 40-year-old ex-inmate from Ust-Kamenogorsk, did his time twice. First for theft, second for robbery. He doesn't wish anyone to end up behind bars, but says the most difficult thing is to survive after being released. If one served a lengthy prison term, it's harder for him out there, until he realizes that he is free. It's all very difficult, even how people treat you. It's not easy to find a job if you have a criminal record. Evgeny was released 1 year ago and went to the local NGO for help. These days he takes part in forums as a social activist from public foundation ANSA. Not only does Evgeny give advice to ex-prisoners, but also provides temporary free shelter, moral and legal support. It all depends on the prisoner, and I can see that the NGO is working with the help of foreign sponsors. During the year that I work here, I haven't seen any support from the government towards those who had been released recently. MPs and officials complain of insufficient funding for rehabilitation centers and the lack of specialists. The salary is only $200, and a group of activists willing to help is not enough. Every year, around 15,000 people are released from prisons. 19,000 were released in 2010 alone. This is a big number of people with a potentially disorderly life. Statistics indicate that 64% of the released prisoners go back to the cell eventually. Evgeny's story is an exception, however. In a country with around 800 prisons and jail settlements, there are only 2 rehabilitation centers for ex-inmates.
Kazakhstan court commented on the verdict of the former deputy governor of Mangistau region, Amangildi Aytkulov. On Monday, he was sentenced to 12 years in jail with confiscation of property. Ex-official was found guilty on 4 counts, particularly in repeated bribery, preparation for a crime and attempted crime. All of them have been proven.
As the deputy head of the region, Aytkulov used to supervise construction and development of Zhanuzyan. According to the investigation, he extorted large amounts of money from businessmen in collusion with a group of other people. Following Zhanuzyan violence last year, the Supreme Court ruled to transfer the Aytkulov's case to the Inter-Regional Criminal Court of Kazakhstan, which then issued the verdict on November 12th. The parties may appeal the court ruling within 15 days. In accordance with the Criminal Code of Kazakhstan, we have appealed to the president, suggesting stripping Aytkulov of his state award, the Order of Kurmet.
International Day of the Blind in Almaty was marked by a protest in support of the director of one of the enterprises for blind. Around 15 citizens with disabilities demanded to dismiss the president of Kazakh Society of the Blind and to reappoint the ex-head, who was previously dismissed. Details come next.
On Tuesday, during a meeting in Almaty, members of the Kazakhstan Association of the Blind demanded its president Baybulat Aubakirov to resign. According to association activists, Aubakirov doesn't protect the rights of visually handicapped people, sells the assets of the association and embezzles the money, leading the organization to bankruptcy. He just wants to sell everything. We are very concerned about our future. Most of us are still young. In fact, we have children to put through schools and colleges. How are we supposed to pay for that? The disability pension alone will not be enough to provide for our kids. We need to keep our jobs. A few days ago, Aubakirov fired the directors of the training and production enterprises of Almaty and Astana for absenteeism and systematic violations, whereas the workers claimed their boss Altynay Ibragimova lost her job for opposing the exchange of health results for visually impaired to pastures. The association members disagree as well, claiming to have no benefit from the trade-off. The reputation of this association simply cannot get any worse. Should anyone get fired, they blame me. Right away they want to accuse me of embezzlement and selling assets. I don't understand why do they intentionally give the association a bad name. While the leadership is busy filing lawsuits against each other trying to define who's right and wrong, Evgeny Sidych, a worker with 35 years of experience and a father of 2 children, blames the law. He says that most companies don't hire people with disabilities and don't purchase the products manufactured by handicapped. Therefore, visually impaired people are inclined to compete with each other. It is a market economy after all. We have no experts because we have no money to pay them high wages. We don't receive concessions of any sort from the government either. There are currently 85 employees working in the plant with 75 years of history behind it. Once there used to be over 1,000 blind and visually impaired employees working here. They've built a few hundred apartments, which is their personal contribution to Kazakhstan's prosperity.
3 activists of social resistance tried to hand in the diploma of anti-national hero in Almaty to Grigory Marchenko. According to them, the head of the National Bank must receive this prize for his offer to increase the retirement age for women.
We sat down and held a meeting since the rallies are not efficient. He doesn't hear us, and so far he's been only promising to resign. At least we need to let him know that people don't support his reforms. Activists tried to hand over the anti-national hero certificate personally to Grigory Marchenko. However, this time he was at the meeting with the president in Astana. The security guard didn't allow socialists along with reporters inside the building. One of the clerical office employees met with people gathered outside and accepted the documents. Apart from certificate, the civil activists wanted to ask Marchenko about the recently established Distressed Assets Fund. Unfortunately, they will have to address him in a written form now. We're the members of the Public Association, and hereby we send a request for the following information to the National Bank of Kazakhstan. What is the purpose of the Problem Loan Fund and how it is going to work? We've looked up its mechanisms on the internet, yet we would still like to receive an expert response from Marchenko.
The second forum of youth entrepreneurship was launched in Almaty. More than 1,000 young businessmen from different regions of Kazakhstan took part in the event. How much can one receive for a successful business project? Find out from the next report.
A young entrepreneur support forum is now open in Almaty. Curiously, however, the promised support is ideological in nature rather than financial. Our primary goal here at Atamaken Startup is promoting entrepreneurship among the younger Kazakhstan citizens rather than financing business ideas. That's why we've chosen quite a flamboyant slogan to announce the Atamaken Startup ideology. Atamaken encourages the younger generation to stop relying on the elders and turn to self-efficiency instead. Miri typifies the forum audience. He's a young IT business fair entrepreneur who is open to expert advice. Such forums offer great opportunities to new entrepreneurs, and I will definitely use the acquired knowledge for improving my business in future. The accomplished entrepreneur Yelena Raikova advises the new business generation to cherish no illusions. She's convinced that her plant was subjected to raiding. Despite the official authorization for the object construction, her premises were demolished last week after the government officials invalidated the previously issued permit through court action. Setting up business production is cumbersome, time-consuming process, while seizing a land plot to resell it a few times through different mediation agencies is a piece of cake to the officials. That's what they do all the time. The most prospective forum participants, above all else, were promised financial support. Just before the convention, the organizers summed up the contest and selected around 20 most successful business projects, whose authors will be able to get a bank loan of up to $130,000 at 14% annual interest. This advance, however, comes with 2 stings. The businessman will have to make a 30% down payment and, most importantly, find the investors to bring his project to life.
Where to find a job? The latest initiatives of the state in the sector to completely turn the state servants to the public endangered the prestige to work for the state. While the parliament is discussing the reforms, public activists think that it is doomed. Details next.
Asem graduated from the philological department of a Kazakhstan university 2 years ago, but she still cannot find a job. Given the choice, she'd have to pick whether to work for a private company or public sector. If I were offered to work in public sector, I would refuse the offer. It is better to start your own business. The salary in civil service is small, and if the crisis happens, they will lay off people. I still want to work as philologist because I love my profession. The law on civil service is the most discussed news among officials. The possible amendments aim to stop heads of civil agencies from hiring their relatives. In the near future, a National Commission for Human Resources Policy will be set up, which should increase hiring transparency in the government offices. On the top of that, MPs are also concerned about nomadic lifestyle of officials. It is necessary to stop this practice, especially with the help of legislation. In the last 20 years, this practice of rotating officials has led to deterioration of human resources in state agencies because they draw people who they call their associates, but in reality, they're only convenient muppets. According to lawyer Abzal Kuspanov, a similar bill has been developed in the EU 5 years ago by Greece. He believes that Greek democracy and local traditions are incompatible in reality. So many bills ready to be adopted form were copied and forced and attempted to be enforced, but the most important element, the mentality of people, a peculiarity of our nation and population, was not taken into account. I believe that the state is repeating the same mistakes. While summing up early results, political scientist Dasim Satpayev compared civil servants with characters in modern folklore. Unfortunately, the collective image of civil servants has become literally comical. We have this character called Baskayda Sumiylekov, which means stupid minion. He's a combination of all corrupted and powerful officials who are only after their personal benefit and follow their personal interests while in public office. In recent years, officials in Kazakhstan are not favored for many reasons, and the state now looks at reducing their ranks by over 6 times. Understandably, this will lead to more competition in the labor market.
Kazakh celebrities performed for orphans. The charity action was dedicated to the International Day of Good Deeds. Artists say that by entering the stage, they not only express mercy, but also provide positive attitude and warmth to the children.
Composer and performer Zhalbara Seyfulin is a frequent guest at benefit concerts. He says the administration of an orphanage declined his financial aid, explaining that his singing is the best gift for the kids. According to religious teachings, we need to help our parents, then relatives and children. If you can, then you should also help others, like neighbors and everyone you can reach. Charity is a philosophy, and I stick to it all the time. The teachers in the orphanages talk about children's life there. They say put on attention from the government will never replace the most important thing for every child, parents' love and care. That's why concerts like these make orphans' life brighter. We try to give as much love as possible to our kids, but they still miss their parents, and some of them haven't even seen them, so all the love we give is not enough to feel needed and loved. Aidur Sharipov faced a tough dilemma of whether to live with parents he had never seen before or a caregiver, mom, in a special village for orphaned children. He chose the latter. I was left behind in a maternity home. I didn't even try to look for my parents now, as we have lived in this village ever since. We have one mom there, and she's really like a real mother to us. The Day of Good Deeds ended with a concert and a dinner. The practice of charity and other events must be continued to make orphan children's life better.
Kazakhstan was elected to the UN Council on Human Rights. Now, for the next 3 years, Kazakhstan and 18 other member states will change the world for the better. The Kazakh MFA even gathered a special briefing to announce the good news.
183 out of 193 UN member states voted for the candidacy of Kazakhstan. The number of received votes ranked in the 5th best among the 18 new member states of the United Nations Human Rights Council. According to some officials, this is the long-awaited achievement for the country, and the heavy vote only reflects the global prestige of Kazakhstan. However, independent human rights activists tend to disagree with such stance. For instance, Evgeny Zhovtis believes that the Monday's elections in New York are well overrated, while Kazakhstan is only indulged in wishful thinking. After all, 94 out of 193 states were not eligible for immediate re-election because they already announced their candidacies in previous years. In fact, the Human Rights Council actually managed to discredit itself in recent years. It's only a matter of simple rotation. It has nothing to do with the level of achievement in the field of human rights. Candidacies from Asia ran for the vacant membership that used to belong to the countries like China and Libya, which was elected by the Council during the rule of Muammar Gaddafi.
This is all we have time for now. Thank you for watching. Stay well.